Aho to ye travellers, cometh young, cometh old. 'Tis adventure we seek for the meek and the bold. A knight and a wizard who drink smashes sour have a magic crusade for you this questing hour.
Hello, travelers. Welcome to today's episode. We have a brand new guest with us, as you can see.
Yes, we do.
Hello.
How would you like us to refer to you throughout
Matt
the podcast?
is totally fine.
Okay.
Matt is great.
Perfect. Awesome.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yep, that's easy.
Welcome to the questing hour. Say hello to all the
Thank you.
travelers and adventurers.
Hello, travelers. Hello, adventurers.
Well, we're just gonna ask you a series of questions. Some of them are more deep, some of them are more silly, and just get your experiences and your input, because we love sharing different perspectives, and that's what this and having guests on our podcast is all about. So I follow you on Twitch. And I have followed your content for a while now, especially on some of your other social medias like Twitter. And that's why I wanted to reach out to you, because you are very inspirational and so well spoken. And I feel like you have your fingers dipped in so many different creative outlets that I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And that means a lot. Seriously, the highest compliment I could ever get is that I inspired someone in their life doing something, because my whole mantra is life's a game. So I really relate to your questing and all of this, because I'm trying to gamify everything that I do, and how can I conceptualize what we like in video games in life, and just make life more fun.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my conceptualization of it, and that's what I try to inspire others with, and that kind of just goes out into all of the things that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so when that hits the inspirational level, that's the goal. So yeah,
I love that. So you said your mantra is life's a game. Where did that come up?
It's been pretty recent. I've rebranded, or at least kind of shifted the brand of MADKurious many times over, and it's kind of evolved into this pretty recently. And I think that's where it's going to stick, right? Is because it's just perfect for everything I'm trying to do, because I do both gaming and business and a bunch of other things that are kind of related to those two things, because I used to work in corporate finance. I have my MBA, and that's what the world I came from. And so kind of combining all of those things, I'm what makes sense for both gaming and business? How can I have those things relate? And so I've been trying to figure out the ways to bring them together, and that worked. It's life's a game. Okay, so I can say, oh, I gamify, how to analyze businesses and how to do this. And so that works on every level, because pretty much everything I'm doing is at least sort of related to gaming or sort of related to business, and I can combine the two easily. So and then it just has evolved into my life as well, because I do so much. I'm just working pretty much around the clock. I take my breaks here and there. I did take a rest day last week, imagine.
As you should. As you should.
Yeah,
We're all about rest days.
Yes. And so, I even did a really random, I called it my side quest, in real life.
Yes!
It really was. Last week, I think, or was it the week? It might have been the week before. I did IRL storage wars, basically.
Oh, you were talking about that.
I found this thing online, because I'm just finding random things to do to make money that it's questing versus having to be at a regular 9 to 5. How can I do things that are different? And this was just trying to auction a storage unit. I was trying to win an auction on a storage unit online instead of in real life. And I found one that had a bunch of gaming stuff in it. And I was like, is this real? Does this work? Let me just try it.
Oh my gosh.
And I was able to get where it's basically if I were to be able to sell it at full price, I could get 5 times the amount that I spent based on my estimations. So now again, this is best case, right? I'm gonna have to ship some stuff, and some stuff isn't gonna work, and some maybe none of it works, right? And so I was looking at the amount of stuff, the percentage that was risky and that which will pretty much sell no matter what. And so analyzed it. I was like, okay, this is worth the risk. Let's try it out. And I don't have a car at the moment. I sold it. I don't need it. I live somewhere I can walk everywhere. And it was just way too much upkeep. And I have this horrible parking garage I have to go down. So I was never driving, even though I love driving, and I'd missed it. So I ended up getting a U-Haul trucks. And I'm so I'm getting a big truck. Cool. All right. Big, giant moving van for this tiny little storage unit. Great. Sounds great. So I go get that, and I drive it, and I find the address, and I haven't driven in months, and I'm all right, here we go. And of course, I've driven for 15, 20 years or whatever now. So it's all right, it shouldn't be a big deal. And the turning radius on those things is surprisingly good. And it was just like, well, if I could do this in a video game, why can't I do it in real life?
I can
You
do
know what
it
I
in
mean?
real
Like
life.
truly,
Yeah.
like what about like what is really different from doing something insane in a video game and doing it in real life? And so I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna keep doing it. This is what I'm trying to do, right? And it all worked out, and I got the stuff, and I'm just trying to figure out now where and how to sell it. And I've been figuring out that whole process, and it's just a different type of game to add to everything else.
That is
That is
so cool.
Yeah.
I
That's
love
awesome.
that. It was like the main quest was just to get to the storage locker, and then you had all these other side quests pop up. They're
Yeah.
like, "Hey, bonus XP if you could get through this."
Yes,
Right,
I
yeah.
ended up going to the pawn shop right after. I was kind of cleaning everything off. I also was meeting someone there, so I needed to be really careful. I didn't know like what this all was, right? I'd never done it before, and of course, as like a small woman, I wanted to be safe. And luckily, my friend could meet me there, so I wasn't alone. And it ended up being a woman, and another small woman that was like
Oh, perfect.
handling the storage unit, so it was
Love
fine.
that.
Yeah, and then just stopped by a pawn shop on the way back, and then came back here because I had a couple things I'm trying to sell that I'd been gathering up and cleaning out, and put some more stuff in there. And I had only a few hours till it closed, but I wasn't as concerned about the actual truck because I could return that in off hours. I was more concerned about the pawn shops closing while I had the truck. And so, and I had stream, I think the next day because I was supposed to stream that day. So I was like, well, I can't really take it in the morning unless I really need to because I don't want to push it again. And so I ended up going to another pawn shop and trying that out. So I was trying to figure out like what they want and what I was missing. They have to have the power cables. They're not interested in some of the stuff that I thought they might be. So it was like learning that process and kind of learning what in a game would be the rule sets, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That kind of reminds me of, so when I went to college, or I was trying to decide on how to go to college, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, I was so stressed about money. And one of the things that my uncle had told me was that he was like, okay, take out the money. Money's just an idea. There are always ways to make money. There are ways to go about doing it that don't require you to work 24/7 and do all these things. And that's kind of what that reminded me of, because you're over here like, I sold my car, I live in a walkable city, it's fine.
Yeah.
But
'Cause you can
what are
always
these
get
other
another car.
routes? Exactly, you can always get
Right.
another car, you could get a bike.
People think that's
like-
insane, but there's like that just led to more adventures because now I walk places. Now I look for
You
the
see new
scooters. Now I call
businesses, you
friends.
meet people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I'm finding new things that are within walking distance or having an excuse to call a friend because like, you know, I don't want to put anybody out if, you know, they can't do it or they don't have time,
Mhm.
but that also is a great excuse to just hang out. You know, most people who love you aren't going to mind just driving you on an
Yeah.
errand, especially since they can, you know, do it while they're on errands and everybody kind of just gets to spend time together. And it's not really like, it just works out, right? And it's gets you back in that almost community vibe. And I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know. I just like because I don't get to spend a ton of time around people anyway, so it's just a good excuse to kind of get out. And like after that whole thing, I went and hung out with that friend later. So it was just
Love
neat
that.
to like it just kind of gets you out of your element a little bit when we're so
It was
like-
probably refreshing.
it was
Mhm.
when we're so heavily independent in terms of like having everything that we need, we don't associate with each other as much. And so sometimes having like an under reliance, but also knowing that you can do it yourself if you need to, but not just having everything at your disposal because you can. And so then you're not spending money on needless things. Like I didn't need to be spending money on car insurance and car maintenance for something that I wasn't using. That's just silly, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
was having to force myself to drive it once a month. And so it's just to think about like what you really need. Don't just follow society, you know?
I love
Yeah,
that.
that's awesome. And like a car is convenient, but when you take away that like safety net of like, oh, I can
Mhm.
just drive by myself to this one place, there's so many more opportunities that you can see out there. And
You
you're
get
like, oh,
creative.
yeah, I've never been to this coffee shop before. I'm walking by it every day. Might as well stop
Yep.
in.
Mhm.
That's
Yep.
awesome. Yeah.
It really is. I've explored so many different things in
Dream.
the area. It's just
So cool.
interesting. It's cool.
Mhm.
It's cool to find those things and establish new patterns because I was driving to grocery stores and there was really no need for me to do that in a lot of ways. I have a farmer's market walking distance. I have grocery stores walking distance. So I was driving to specific ones, but if I really want something from those, I can always order it, right? And
Mhm.
ordering isn't always the most economical thing. But if I'm doing these things where I'm walking around, like it all kind of just falls into place versus like doing something just because you have the car. And that's just like
Yeah.
one of those other ways of just kind of changing your behavior by doing something kind of outside of the norm. And I've been
Mhm.
trying to kind of push my boundaries in that way the last few years.
Yeah.
I
feel like
love
that's a lot more
that.
fulfilling as well. Like I
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because as much as I love driving, I'm not in the area for it. So why would I? If it's a pain because I have a bad parking garage that I have to go a million floors, and because I'm like in a very busy area, why would I do that? Right? Why would I not
Right.
just wait until I'm maybe a little bit more off the grid and then have a car again? Because that makes more sense. But now why would I not take advantage of the advantages in the area I'm in right now?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love that. Have you always lived in like a walkable kind of nice city?
Mm-mm. I'd say I think I've been in this place for about 6 years. So before that, it was walkable to a certain degree, but very much I needed a car there.
Mhm.
And before that, never. It was absolutely I needed cars everywhere I went. So
Yeah.
What did you do in those instances where it wasn't such a like a convenient adventurous situation where you had to take the car and you had
completely different routine, but it was also nicer
Yeah.
because I, could have a car in a driveway. And so it was easy to just go versus here. It was just such a pain. And so it's like, okay, if you have a pain point, is there an opportunity? And so I see if there's a problem, where's the opportunity in it? Maybe I can change my behavior and do something different, because pretty much every single time you have a problem, there's going to be a set of advantages to it as well. There's a reason, like it's kind of that ebb and flow there. If there's a problem, there's something else you can look at to say, hey, but there's an advantage to the situation. What is it? And can I take advantage of it? And so I was like, you know what? That might actually be a really big opportunity, because I'm not going to live. This is not my forever home. I don't think I'm going to live here forever. So that gives that opportunity to have that experience for a little while. And then if I live somewhere where it's not possible, I will have had this experience, Yeah.
I love that. I love that you start off with telling us how you went on your own little side quest. So how would you, when we say adventure, how would you define it? What is the first thing that comes to mind? Like how would you define adventure in somebody's life in general?
Funny enough, when you said like what's the first thing that comes to mind, for me it's truly like spontaneity, which I don't know why I associate adventure with spontaneity, because I think adventure can be somewhat planned and then you can have things
Yeah.
happen that you react to. But I always did a lot of, like in my 20s, I was very FOMO, right? Like I just always wanted to be a part. If somebody asked and they were like, hey, you want to go on this adventure? My answer was always, always yes. And I'm exhausted now. Like,
but do you regret any of them?
I'm good for a little while. I'm just hanging out. I'm good to play video games and read and just kind of like hang out with my cats. I'm tired now. But it was fun at the time, and I traveled a ton, and I was always kind of like learning and experiencing and absorbing everything around me and just like needing to be a part of it. And now I can kind of just sit in that and like let it just relax. And it's like, okay, I did those things. I absorbed, and now like the sponge time is over, and I'm kind of just like letting it out in different ways. And so I'd say that would be the best way to describe it. So for me, adventure is something where you're taking on new things that you haven't before, and that's where I think that spontaneity comes from too, because you can do that planned, but I usually just kind of do a little research and I'm like, is this something that will benefit me? Is the risk reward worth it in my mind for what I'm seeing? Okay, let me try it. And then if it starts to become something that's not what I need at the time, then you have to be like not afraid to cut that off and say, okay, sunk costs are fine, I'm out, let me switch gears. And I do that a lot, and it can be very confusing, but that's an adventure, right? So
Yeah, I like that. Being able to just like take good and bad experiences from all these spontaneous adventures and then use them in the future once you've gained that knowledge.
Yeah, just not being afraid of the failure of anything, because adventure isn't about like winning. It's about just experiencing. And so you don't have to have everything work out all the time. And so like, let's say that I, am not making enough money and I need a car, figure it out. There's car loans for a reason. And while, that may not be the best, and I'm from finance world, so like this is not financial advice, this is terrible financial advice, but you can figure it out, right? It's just like, not everything has to be the max perfect financial decision all the time. Just like don't get yourself into hot water. Just try to prevent as much as you can, and like figure out the risk reward that you want on your adventure. And right now I'm playing a very risky game, and it can be very stressful, but it's also very rewarding because it's something where I'm not every day. I don't know what's going to happen to some degree. There's a lot of potential for what could happen versus when I was in finance and very set and everything was just settled in routine. I didn't have a lot to hope for. There was no change to be excited for. It was just, okay, well, it's going to be the same thing as it was yesterday. And like, maybe I get a raise or a promotion. But if I do, it's because I played this political game in the office place. It's not because like I did good work. And that drove me nuts. I wanted to be recognized for good work. And so I tried to form that for myself where I can do more of getting the rewards for actual good work and find that place for myself.
Yeah, I love that. Do you think there are challenges that come with that as well, instead of just like a regular like routine? What are some of the challenges that you've come up against?
I don't recommend it for most people, but I will try to help if people want to. It is definitely a difficult thing, and for people who like routine, it could be hard. I've seen a lot of people talk about doing it successfully. I haven't actually seen with my eyeballs people doing it successfully, but there are a lot of people who talk a big game in like the entrepreneurship space about how they, wake up at 5 a.m. and they're taking a cold shower and
I'm
they're
like,
doing
how on earth? Because I can't even
Okay.
get up at 9 a.m.
Yeah, I don't believe. Now, I have had times in my life where I've gotten up at like that early and done stuff, but that was actually when I was streaming at one point. I was waking up really early so I could stream before work. So that was a little different, but I was doing it pretty successfully every day. I don't know how, because I couldn't now. It just depends. I have phases more than routine, I would say. So right now, this phase for the last month or so, I've not been getting enough sleep. You can kind of see it in my eyes. For a while, I was like never setting an alarm, but it just depends, because like stream days, I was setting alarm and then I wasn't for the other days. And that worked out really well. And I was usually getting my 8 hours. But it depends on the phase. And so, like, for instance, this time last year, I was doing Mad Assassin's Creed Summer and we were playing all the Assassin's Creeds and I was streaming just about every day. So I was not on any routine. As soon as I got, like, when I finally just could not stream anymore, it was like, all right, I'm going to go to bed, take a little break, and then I'll be back tomorrow whenever I wake up and I'm good to go. And we would just do that. And so the routine wasn't really like set. It was just whenever I'm
like,
awake,
whenever
I'm
I
on.
get up.
Yeah.
And it worked out really well that way. And I enjoyed it a lot. But I was sleeping in the middle of the day all the time. It just kind of depended on where it was, like a constantly evolving schedule based on like my own body's reflexes to needing to be awake or asleep, which was just a weird way to live. And I've done that experiment many times over, depending on whether stream is running things or everything else. And so depending on like where I'm at with money or where I'm at with expectations for things, or like if it's an output month or a money month, or if there's other things that come into play, like Cats is meowing. You good, baby?
Sweet baby.
Talking.
Oh my gosh, I just noticed the camera.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It's so cute.
He wanted to hang out, so I made sure to give him his camera.
Oh.
The other
Best
one's the one
cameo
meowing.
ever.
I don't know what she's doing. Oh, what were we talking about? Hold on, I'm gonna turn my ear down a little bit. No, ADHD. What was our topic we were on before the cat?
Okay, you were saying how you literally would just go according to your body.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I've done that a lot, but it depends. So if you've got like if you have a goal or something in mind that you're working towards each day, that helps form a routine. So I do set kind of like deadlines for myself, and they usually change, but it's like one of those, what's that like cliche saying, aim for the moon, hit the stars or something?
Yeah,
Like,
even if you miss, you'll land among the stars.
Exactly. Aim really, really big, and then just don't be disappointed when you don't hit it. Like, be prepared to fail on that regard, but go towards it. Just work towards it, and you're still going to hit something. So for instance, when I made my book series, I was aiming for like 5 different things at one time. You would not believe the amount of things I worked on in that month that weren't just that book series.
Oh
I
gosh.
got the book series out, right? And so it just depends on kind of like what you're ready for and what you're going to put effort towards, and like prioritizing that. And my priorities shift all the time because I'm constantly trying to figure out what is evergreen, so what's going to continue on even if like I were to have to get a job tomorrow. Like what can still, like I need some of those so I don't feel like not that I would ever feel like I've wasted my time, but let's say like I have things built up that would still build even if I were to have to go get a job tomorrow, right? I want enough of those things. And so that's always like on the back burner. Let me work on YouTube is pretty much like what I think of there. Let me work on trying to learn the social media skills for like stuff I can really output and like get a routine going for. And so those have been on the back burner, but they're not necessarily the easiest money makers, right? So streaming is the easiest money maker for me. Trying to find clients, it can be a really good money maker if I can get the right ones. And if that pops up, then everything else kind of has to shift because that's the moneymaker, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like putting all of these little puzzle pieces together at the right time. And I feel like I'm making mistakes all of the time and it's very stressful, but it's also like gives me life because I wake up with like a challenge every day and something to look forward to and something to look towards. And so I think if I can get out of the like stressful period with like, just trying to make it work, and if I can get to that point where I can start to scale and like I feel relaxed and like I have enough, that will just be nothing but fun for me. Like the only stress right now for me is just the money part. And then like if I were to get that all worked out and I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. I'd just be having the best time. I've never understood why like the really large creators or entrepreneurs that are doing well are that stressed because you can have a good time. You've got it figured out. Like you don't
Yeah.
need to be perfect. Just have fun.
Yeah,
I love that,
especially
yeah.
in ways of streaming. I feel like so many people get caught up in like how to do it right and how to just like basically follow the algorithm to get money. And I'm like, and there's somebody for everyone out there. There is always an audience for something, and you will find your people, and eventually they'll flock to you. But you have to put the work in. And if
Mhm.
you're like everyone else, then what? What is?
I fell into that so hard when I
Yeah.
first started.
It's very easy to.
It's
Yeah.
a trap because it's like all of the people who are wanting the same thing all have the same conversations nonstop. And only the people who break out of that are having a good time. They're just in their own little like circle of hell
Bubble.
that
Yeah.
they've made.
Like it's fun in here, don't worry.
Yeah, and it's just like I can't get any viewers. I can't do this, and like,
Mhm.
no, why is nobody big rating me? And it's like all of these same conversations. It's like, well, I'm doing everything perfectly because I
Yeah.
have the 5 minutes starting soon with the timer. I have all of the perfect tech things on my stream the way that they're supposed
Yeah.
to be. I have like and they have this like little checklist, and it's like nobody really cares about that.
It's
at
like
the end
I
of the
stream
day.
8 hours a day and I am so good at this. And then I go in their stream and it's dead silent.
Yeah,
I'm like-
and so it's like you're worrying about all the wrong things because that's just what they've been told, and that's what you see when you because
Yeah.
I didn't start
On the
streaming like
surface,
a normal
yeah.
person. I started streaming because I saw it on the PlayStation.
Oh yeah.
I had never
Oh.
watched a streamer in my life, so I didn't know what I was getting into. So other people like see the
Just
culture
happened.
first, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Well, I have to do all these things, or I'm not a
Mhm.
streamer." I just turned the thing on, and I was like, "All right,
Hello.
Here we are.
what's going on? What now?"
I love that.
Oh my gosh.
I just kind of like figured it out. I was like, well, I should talk to people. That's like if people come in. It was just
Yeah.
like logically. It wasn't like putting any pressure. There wasn't anyone telling me this is the right way to do it. It was just like, okay, well, I'm here and I'm gonna talk while I game. Cool. That's all you really need is just like have a thing that you want to show off and then show it off. The other stuff's just extra,
That's cool. Mhm.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
Okay, so in our first few months of the podcast, we have talked about the hero's journey. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, where would you say you are in your hero's journey? If your life went through a series of hero's journeys, where would you say you are in the hero's journey at this moment in your life?
Probably the low point if we're being
Yeah, we've been there.
probably the low point. I
The
can't
darkest
imagine.
night of the soul.
Yeah.
Really, truly. I
Darkest
feel like
night.
I've kind of been in that for the last year. And not that I'm not having a good time because for me, I'm just going to make the most of whatever the
Yeah,
situation is. And at the same time, like if it were to get to a point, like, and it might in the next couple months where I have to find a job, I don't know yet. I'm still playing the game and trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
And I am trying to get maybe either a part-time situation or the right consulting clients. And if I can get that, then everything kind of stays for a little bit longer. And then I can focus again more on the YouTube and everything. And I started gaming journalism freelance as well, but that doesn't pay quite enough for me to be able to make enough fast enough for that to work. Right. And so it's like, where can I place all of these pieces? And so it's just been like money stress for the last year or so trying to make it work. And that's just part of the game. I mean, but when you see like people think it's kind of silly to quit your job, and it is, don't do it without a plan. But they also don't think through what it actually means, because a lot of people will go into severe debt to start a business. Now, those businesses have a lot less, I mean, they still have a lot of risk, but the upside is a little bit more set, because you're generally going to have the market research and know that you're going to be able to make sales. Like if you open a bakery, hopefully you would have the research there to know that people are going to pass by that bakery and come in, right? That's a little different than like digital online businesses, right? It's a different type of reach. And so, and especially in the creator industry, where a lot of it is like generosity based and ad based, and the platforms can change it on you, and you have a little bit less control than like in a physical sales situation or a physical business situation. You're offering entertainment. It's just not as technically valuable. Like it's not a need versus some of the other things. So it's just more difficult to make sure that you're going to make money. Nonetheless, people will go into severe debt for those things. I mean, they'll take out a business loan for hundreds of thousands of dollars just because they know that this will likely make that money back. And so the creative endeavor can do that too, especially when you're not going into debt. Like if you can save up and you're making enough to kind of cover it, and you have like a safety net while also making just enough, you can try to build stuff in the background. So the way I look at it is I'm just buying myself time to try to build like the evergreen stuff, right? And then hopefully that grows, and I'm building my skill set, my knowledge base, and all of that. And so even if I have to get a job again, the whole purpose is still there. It's been to grow this over time, and I've just been buying myself time to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
but it's still a dark night of the soul because I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Well, that's the best part about the Dark Knight, is that eventually you get out of it.
Yeah. And so
eventually it starts to get lighter.
One way or another, it will, it'll shift and change. And whether that's getting a job and saving back up so that I have a little bit more to work with, or it's something works out. Either way, it'll shift and change. But that Dark Night of the Soul, just realizing, oh my goodness, this is hard.
Oh God.
And it feels like I've done everything that I
exhausting.
can, and there's nothing more that I can really do any faster. And so it's just kind of that waiting period of like, what is going to happen next that I have to react to, right?
Yeah.
And so that it just feels like that. Oh my gosh,
kind of feels like you're like waiting water and just like hoping you don't drown and waiting for that floaty to come in.
That full Dark Night of the Soul. Like I know it's going to work out one way or another, but only because I'm working so hard, and I'm like ready for that to maybe have like a relax for a second, because it feels like I've been doing that. I've been full time doing this for a little over 2 years, and it just feels like I've been going really hard for half of it, like really hard for half of it. So,
I can imagine.
Wow.
He came over here now.
Hello, sweet baby. You want to be in the podcast?
Yeah, this is his little perch. He goes to the other one too, but this is his favorite because he wants.
He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, he is.
So businessman.
And entrepreneurship is interesting in that way for sure, because it's interesting to see how people talk about it, because some people talk about it anybody who talks about it being easy is lying. They are lying through their teeth. They've been given something. Somebody has gifted and bestowed those gifts upon them, and they're just making it work from there. But like if you are building something from scratch, it is never ever easy. Don't listen to anyone who tells you that. It takes like full devotion and prioritizing it. I've seen people do it with like, families and everything else, and they make it work and they build something really, really great. That's not to say that you can't do it when you have a lot of other stuff going on, but it is to say that you will have to devote yourself to it and make sacrifices. And there are always opportunity costs, because if you're not doing that, and let's say you are doing a 9-to-5 or another really stable job, right? Like if you have a more stable job and then you have all of these things in line, you're able to have more of a routine and you can build out your life that way. If that's what you want, that is actually going to be much, much, much simpler on the mind, because you're not having to think about a million things all at once to try to make things work, right? So it's a stressful way to live, especially when you're starting up. And even after that, owning everything has its own freedom, but it also has its own responsibility. That whole cliche thing. It's like, if you have the power, that also means that you have everything that you also have to keep in line. And so you can never really like fully relax. You don't have that where it's just, oh, I do what people tell me, and so I don't have any responsibility for this. I can wash my hands of it. It's their problem. They just tell me what to do. And so there is a comfort in having people tell you what to do. And people don't want to admit that because they're like, oh, that's not what's no, it really is just the comfort of letting somebody else hold the reins for a little while. And there's nothing wrong with that. After doing stuff like completely for myself for 2 years, I can say confidently that there's absolutely nothing wrong with just like giving somebody else the reins for a while, but you're having an opportunity cost either way. And I really wanted the freedom of it, and have learned what that really truly encompasses, because freedom is a lot of work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Especially when I feel like entrepreneurship is something that's almost like breaking out of what society's mold is, and our whole lives are built around how society functions. And so it's like you're trying to reframe not only your own mindset, but also your entire way of life working around something that doesn't work for you. And so that's like
because
not
almost
only
everything
exhausting in
was
pursuit,
that.
but yeah.
Like in the last 100 years, pretty much, is when we've had this big society we've created of like having these safe careers, right? Before it's true, you'd have some that were careers and this, but there was a lot more gig work. Everything was pretty much entrepreneurship and gig work, and building stuff that you from what your family had, or like there were so many different systems other than the like type of W-2 work that we have now, or wherever anybody lives, whatever their tax system is. But nonetheless, like the contractual work was like different back then, and it wasn't this long-term thing with retirement. It was so different, and people forget that. We forget the history of it. And when you try to think about the history of jobs and taxes and like how these systems were built, and I know taxes sounds boring, but trust me, it is really interesting when you look at the history of taxation, because so much of this has like created the systems that we have now, and then you can kind of decide for yourself which parts are best for you, instead of just doing whatever society tells you. And if that's still the same thing you were doing, great, but now you know why you're doing it, and you don't have to be as almost resentful of the fact, like, when you just have that mindset of, oh, I was kind of forced into this, I'm just doing it because I have
like,
to.
I
Now
had to pay my taxes.
I choose to. I like this more than the alternative, right?
I literally never even thought about looking up why I have to pay taxes.
Right,
it's an interesting history. I highly recommend it.
Oh my god,
it's really interesting.
Like, all right, I just have to pay the government $300. That's fine, I guess.
Okay.
It's nobody likes it. It's definitely a pain, and it is an interesting history, because it defines a lot about how our income system was created. Yeah.
Very cool.
I love that you have so much knowledge. I'm just like trying to take it all in and like think.
Yeah, it's one of those lifelong learner things. I just can't stop it. I'm just always wanting to learn things.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, absolutely.
I go down rabbit holes, and it takes me away from what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just like, I have to learn about this thing, which is what happened with the storage unit thing. It was a whole rabbit hole. I was like, I have to do this. This is happening right now.
You gotta keep going. Yeah, keep going down this road.
Must do it.
Yeah.
I've already started, might as well finish it.
Right.
And sometimes they don't work out. Like I've had a million and one ideas, right? Prioritizing them is the hardest part. It's not coming up with new ideas. And so it's really interesting when I see people who are like, I just don't have any ideas. I don't know what to do. And it's like, if you don't have ideas, go have somebody else tell you what to do, because
right.
you can't get that far. It's like, you're just not in a place for it. Like, it doesn't mean that you can't. It just means like that might not be your calling at the moment, because when you have a million ideas, the hardest part is to prioritize. If you don't have them, you certainly can't prioritize them. So just go learn something. Go let other people.
And the
teach
ideas
you
will
stuff for a
come.
while.
Take in the information. They always say, like, for example, I like to write a lot of poetry. When I was in college learning about poetry, they were like, the first thing about writing is that you also have to read. You have to read other people's writing. You have to read other people's poetry in order to take it in and therefore write your own.
Yes,
and so
bonus points if you're going out and living. If you're going out and doing wild adventures, right?
Exactly. So, what would you say is the importance of people kind of grabbing these adventures and like living their best life or their truest self?
What would I say is what about it?
Why would you? What do you think is the importance of doing it?
personally, that's what my life is all about. No matter what, like that's just been at the forefront for me. I as a kid, I had a great childhood, but it was very contained and like very routine. And it was like, you're on this set track, this is what you do. And I didn't have a lot of freedom within that. Sure, I was able to like learn a lot of things and do different learning adventures, if you will, but I was not able to kind of like choose exactly what I wanted to do every day, right? And so for me, like the joy of life is to kind of have that ability to choose and to go where I have interest, because why would we like force ourselves against our own interests in order to just have money? Like we can, you know what I mean? Like, yes, we need a certain amount of money to feel like safe for our health and everything else, but like that's all we need. And I think people overestimate what they need. And, you know, like look at all of the consumerism in this room. I have way too much crap, right? Like, and I have
Me also looking in my room.
realized if I could go back and tell 20-something-year-old me anything, it would be stop buying crap. Stop it. Just
Stop buying things you don't
You need to
need.
tell me that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
tell
just-
me to do
And
that.
of course, some of this is like decorations on purpose, but I still have a bunch of crap I don't need.
Yeah.
And that's part of like the storage unit thing. Like all of that is kind of combined and like, okay, I'm trying to get rid of stuff. I'm trying to recycle stuff. I'm trying to take stuff that I've used or other people have used. And then if I'm getting something, let me get more used stuff instead of new. And like just trying to figure that out for myself, because I think that we're focused on the wrong things a lot because that's what society has told us. And whether that's because on purpose or because it's just the nature of a large society and what that does to our brains and what that does to our systems and what that does to individuals and families and everything else, like everything that has done to us, we are reacting as though we don't have any choice in the matter. And that's just not true. Sure, we might have less choice in the matter than like a Wild West type of society, but we still have choice. And a lot of people don't see that, especially if they've either had comfort or they haven't been able to even, or on the opposite end of the spectrum, they've never had a second to even think about what they want. And so it's that like middle ground where I've tried to put myself, where it's just disruptive enough where I can kind of really think about what I actually want and pursue that. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, I'm still doing what I want to do versus, you know, putting myself in a position where I have no hope of ever getting out. Like, why would you want to do that to yourself, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't
Just
sound very
trap
fun.
yourself in a box.
Yeah.
So
I
throughout
hated
this-
working in an office. It was awful.
Oh my God. Yeah. it's
Fluorescent
terrible.
lights,
Doors.
no windows. I have a wall of windows here, and I can sit in
That's
that all
amazing,
day
yeah.
long.
The dream. The dream.
Yeah.
No. No, I work in television, and I work in like
Ooh.
a big studio in a booth all day. So I
Yeah.
don't see the light of day for 9 or 10 hours.
Oh, I hate that.
It's awful.
TV
It's
sounds
You-
fun, but booth does not sound fun.
Yeah, it's like fine. It's definitely not as glamorous as
Yeah.
you think it is. And I'm just sitting there like in front of a computer screen for 10 hours. And then I
And
walk
sometimes
out.
the work is fun, but you
Yeah.
don't want to do it all the time. And that's a problem
Mhm.
too, is we've like the problem with like big society is that we specialize so hard. It's
Mhm.
hard for us to have joy in it because we just do it nonstop. It would be fun in smaller doses, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
if I wasn't trapped there, I would love it. But
Yeah.
I have to go there in order to eat.
Yeah.
And it makes it less fun.
If I don't go to work, I can't live in a house.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep. It just
Mhm.
I wish that there was more that we could do to get to that part of society where like it just feels like we should have the standard of living risen above where it is now, like in terms of
Right.
actually being able to just kind of exist and pursue our interests. And I just wish we had more of that, because it just feels like such a wasted opportunity for everyone to have to
Yeah.
kind of like struggle in a very specialized way. You know, we can all be doing a lot
Absolutely.
more cool stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Absolutely.
So anything I can do to try to create that for myself and then replicate it for others. That's what I'm trying to do, but it
Yeah.
is messy and it is hard,
Uh-huh.
and the freedom comes with consequences. So it's you just have to one of my favorite, again, cliches, I'm just throwing, I guess I'm just cliche today, but like the choose your
Nothing wrong with
hard.
that.
Choose your hard is one of my favorite ones, because you can seriously, anything you do is going to be hard. What kind of hard do you want? Do you want, oh, I go to the
Mm.
9 to 5 and I at least have the safety and security, most likely, unless there's layoffs, because there's layoffs all the time now, but the safety and security of like, hey, I have a job, it's paying me enough, I know I can pay my bills this
Mhm.
year as long as they don't fire me, right? Like, cool.
Yeah.
You have that. That's a peace of mind, and you can let that go and you can focus on other things. That problem is solved. But, you know, I don't have that problem solved, but at least I also can like go run an errand at any time of the day if I want to, right? Nobody's stopping me.
Yeah.
And so it's just a different choose your heart, right? And so that I kind of live by that. It's like people have been like, well, why would you want that kind of struggle? And it's like, because it's a different kind of struggle. It has its advantages, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can get sleep a lot more easily. Not that I have in the last month, but I certainly didn't get enough sleep when I worked in an office because I had to be up early in order to drive all the way there, drive all the way back. And it just felt like most of my day was wasted. And when you're finally done and you're turning off your brain, it just feels like, what can I do to have a good time before I have to go back to that, right? And it's a different mentality than trying to enjoy the moment, because you can enjoy any moment because you're trying to do what you want to do. And so you kind of develop a different mentality, and you can have that even in the 9 to 5. I just didn't, because I felt miserable. And I didn't see a way out. You almost need that like hope of like, this can get better in order to really enjoy it more,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So how did you, okay, so I wanted to ask, because, you said you weren't always that way, especially with the 9 to 5 and being miserable and things like that. But were you always so, like, what shifted your mind? How did your mindset change from being kind of stuck in this box, miserable, to being this outspoken, creative entrepreneur that, I like, one of my favorite things is I love seeing your opinions on Twitter and you voicing yourself, and even in your streams when you analyze the video games and everything like that. It's such a different way of looking at the video games that I feel like people don't do, especially when they're streaming. And so it's really interesting that you kind of found like this niche way of playing video games on the platform. But how did you shift your mind to that?
It's been a huge evolution. I mean, a lot of art, there's nothing new under the sun. So you're kind of doing something that's already been done before, and you can try to make it your own. And so when you're first starting in something, you're always going to be very like iterative. You're going to be very, very much doing what somebody else has done before. And it's rare that you see someone out the gate doing something different. This has been a whole evolution of like 4 years of streaming, right? And it's come over time. I'd say like, starting from corporate finance and why I just was over it. I really enjoyed the work, and I went into it because I knew it was going to be stable, right? I mean, I was in college in 2010 to 2014. So that was like right after a big recession, right?
Yeah.
So we'd seen, like, our generation saw what can go wrong. So we were already like disillusioned from trusting the system too much, right? And so I went into grad school straight away, and then I was like, finance will be steady. I'm just going to go that route. I like that type of work. I like being in Excel. I like the puzzles. That to me was like a game, and I didn't even realize it at the time. But it's actually, even today, I was trying to play a mouse and keyboard game because I'm a controller gamer, and that's a whole story. But it felt like I was back in Excel again because I'm doing these. That's like that. I didn't like. I connected the two. I'm like, yeah, it is like a game. And I really enjoyed the work, especially like when there was a almost half and half where I could do tedious stuff and just like listen to podcasts and just get the work done and get paid to like do tedium. I was like, oh, this feels good for the brain. I'm wanting to rest. And then to have like the other half of the month projects where I could try to really engage and like make things better and solve puzzles. And so that was like a really good split for me. My problem was the office politics. And just like never being able to be right, because I wanted to do a good job, but they wanted things in a million different ways, the way that they wanted it for different priorities. And in every corporation, you've got every layer, every person that is in any way in charge of you has different priorities. And so like you're always going to have a boss and a customer, no matter what type of job. Like even if it doesn't seem like you always have a boss and a customer, and those two are always going to be at odds.
Yep.
For real.
It's such a pain because you're having to deal, like the people was the hardest part. And I just didn't want to deal with that. I just wanted to play the game, right? I just wanted to like do the work and do really well at it. And so I struggled with that. And like there was a breaking point for me where I was like, here's how we do a good job. They'd come to me to basically consult on a project because it wasn't part of my direct line of work at the time. They were like, we want you to lead on this project. You told us a year ago that it was going to break, and it did. And I was like, yeah. No.
Yeah, I
And
know,
they
I
were
told
like,
you
"Can
that."
fix it?" And I was like, absolutely I can. So I made this huge big plan. I was working with a girl that was gonna like fix everything, and I was just leading out on the strategy for it.
Mhm.
And I presented my big plan to them, and they were like, that's too difficult and it'll take too much time. And I'm like, well, then give us more people and more resources and we can all get it done.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't because we're doing this, this, and this. So I'm like, well, there's no other way to do it. And they're like, well, we're just gonna, anybody who knows anything about Excel, there's like a way where you can create, or like data management. Basically, you can create like a back end structure that makes the data easy to read, right?
Mhm.
And they were making it so that we were directly referencing data in a really disorganized fashion that was hardly traceable and really easy to break. And
Oh.
so I was like, well, we have to do it this way. If you don't want it to break again, it's going to break again within the year. Just the nature of it, because you're going to have to copy and paste things really quickly when you're in month end close, which is when they're rushing around trying to get reports done at the end of every month to send them out to everybody. And so it's
Mhm.
like, you're going to be rushing around and this is going to break again. This is the way to prevent it if you put systems in place that plan for that. But it takes time to build. Give me 3 months and this will never break again, especially if you have someone who knows what they're doing running it. But if you're not willing to do that, then maybe try to get tech on your side and have them build something for you. And that would be great. That would work too. Those are your two best options. The third is to do what you're doing and it's still going to break again. They're like, we just want the short-term fix. And I'm like, then I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not the
Yeah.
Oh
one.
my gosh.
The thing is, I wasn't just working for a regular finance department. I was working for a transformation department. My whole job was to try to improve things. And I called them
Wow.
out. My manager like had a talk with me after, because this was like the most almost rebellious that I'd been in the entire, because I'm usually just like, it's fine. Yeah, I'll do whatever you want pretty much. And like, just try to be
Yeah.
respectful and like, just get the
Mhm.
job done. Right. Like, it's not my job to be the manager at that point. It's my job to just do what they want me to do and get it done. And that's fine. And try to, navigate
Yeah.
the customer versus the boss.
Mhm.
But this was where I broke. And I was just like, listen, I'm not doing that. And I can't fix this and put my name on it to be a scapegoat for that short term that's going to break again just to get
Yeah.
it done quickly. And you want it only slightly better, but put my name on it as a scapegoat. No, I'm not playing that game. I can tell you're playing political games with me as a pawn. I just wanted to do a good job. So this is not the project for me. You guys want to do it, and we are the transformation department. This is not transformative work, and I'm not doing it, is what I said.
All
And my
right.
manager like gave me
As you should.
because I said that very forcefully. And my
Mhm.
manager came to me the next day and she's like, you can't talk to everyone like that. And I was like, yeah, I probably should have worded that differently, but I'm frustrated. I don't know if you do.
Yeah. You said
Um,
what you said.
Yeah, and she was great. She was one of the best managers I ever had because she understood me and she knew where to place me and what kind of
Mhm.
projects I'd be into. Of course, she didn't have like full control because it was just
Yeah.
really big corporation, but she knew like what I was about and what type of work I'd be good at. And she knew that if I had the time, that would have been perfect. But it just was one of those things. And so that was kind of the breaking point for me where I was like, this really might not be the career for me. I'm going to have to deal with this forever, where I am just never getting to enjoy my work because they're
Mhm.
constantly changing the rules of the game in a way that has nothing to do with the actual work.
Mhm.
And so it didn't seem fun anymore. I was like, what can I do that would give me a little bit more like ability to think long term and think about the things that I think are important for the work and really truly do a good job. And then 2020 hit. Because I had been working
Yeah.
on a million projects. I had flights like that were supposed to go out within
Mhm.
those months. And they were booked and they were ready. And it was like I had all of this stuff where I was still going to try to make it work, right? And then it hit and we were all sent home. And it was like, okay, well, this is new and different. And now, even if I wanted to try to play their games to climb the corporate ladder, I can't, not from here, not as
Yeah.
easily remote. And that's
Mhm.
why some people like being in the office because they want to play those games. Anybody who likes the office, I swear, just likes that part of it. They like the people component more, which is fine. We all
Mhm.
have our different interests, but I liked the work, the nerd stuff.
Yeah.
And so I did really well with my work for a while. And then I was like, wait a second, this is freeing. Like I'm able to actually make the decisions for myself. I don't have anyone breathing over me. I don't have anyone interrupting me. I can ignore a chat. I can't ignore someone in person.
Yeah.
Like this is awesome, right?
Yeah.
And I was just able to like really focus on my work and do better, to be honest, at my job, even though, a lot of people will claim, oh, nobody does. No, there was one time I spent 17 hours on the phone with my manager nonstop. And we just powered
Oh,
through a project.
Wow.
I
We were
love
like, this is
that.
going to take weeks and we don't have weeks. How do we
Yeah.
do this? And we're like, let's just get it done. Let's not stop until we're done, which is what I do with my streams and everything.
With
I'm just
everything.
insane.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do it. And so people don't realize, like, it doesn't matter where you're working. If you're trying to do a good job versus trying to manipulate people, that like,
Yeah.
truly,
Yeah.
the people who want to be in the office are just trying to play people versus actually doing a like good work. And if it's a people facing job, obviously that's different. But like for that kind of work, you don't need to be around people. I mean,
Yeah.
sure, it's great to have face to face every once in a while. I do think that's
Mhm.
important, but there's so much you can do virtually now, especially, and you can have good communication online. So for me, that was like a really eye-opening experience. I ended up going on a road trip soon after that and trying to work while on the road just for fun because I had a friend who was like going up. I live in Florida, and they were like going up the coast of Florida and then traveling around a little bit and like camping and doing all this, like just trying to get some nature time after like being cooped up inside.
Yeah.
And so I went with them, and I would take every couple days off. And so with a weekend, I could have like 3 or 4 days to just hang out. And then I would work on the road a little bit. And then we'd stop and get to like the next, place we were going. And I'd work, and I could just work from my phone hotspot. And it worked out really, really well. And I did that for about 3 weeks of traveling. I had, I think I had my sister's bachelorette party somewhere in there. And it was just like a fun
awesome.
period of time where I was like, I could do this. Like I could build myself a life where it's a little bit less like stringent routine.
Mhm.
Like, is there a way that I can get out of this? We're seeing it now in the remote work. Like I had dreamt of being fully remote one day. That was my dream, was just to get out of the office one day. I didn't have the big dreams of like being able to have a business. It was just, let me get out of the office. The fluorescent lights are making me sad. And my only joy every day is having lunch. Like there must be
Oh,
something
no.
better, right? Or like when I can get in the zone and everyone leaves me alone and I can just get my
Mhm.
work done. And I was like, but
Mhm.
I love working like outside, getting a little fresh air and like being able to just kind of get up and walk around and wear what I want because nobody likes being in stuffy office clothes. So it was all of that kind of awakening for me because the world shut down. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of people had a lot of changes from that.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so for me, I was like, what can I do to create more? And it just evolved from there since I was streaming, that I was like, maybe I can really do something with this. And things built up for me. And I was like basically on a trajectory until, streaming kind of plummeted right after I quit pretty much. But make it work, right? Like it's just part of part of the journey. And so that's what led to it, was just I really, really enjoyed what I was doing. And I was like, what can I build from this? What can I take a risk with? Because I just was disillusioned with money too. Money wasn't helping things. I mean, again, you need a little bit for safety and security and health, and that's it. Like we don't need more than that. It's just that like Maslow's hierarchy, right? Like get to that point where you can feel safe and secure. And then what do you need more than that, really? Like after that, it's what can you do to really enjoy yourself more and like do more that
Mhm.
brings you and others joy? What is your motivation? Find that and do that, and pair that with the making money as much as you can, because you don't need it to be so separate so that you're miserable.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
I think it is that separation that kind of causes the misery, because
Mhm.
once
Mhm.
you're, working that 9 to 5, you really don't have time for anything else. Like the
Nope.
amount of people that I know that don't have a single hobby at all.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
I'm like,
Mhm.
you guys don't have anything you want to do besides like work and sleep?
You don't
Yeah.
have time. So many people don't have
There's
time.
no
You know,
time.
they get up, they work out, they commute to their job, they come back, they make dinner, they clean up, and maybe they have a few minutes of rest, and then they do it all over again. And then on the weekend, they have responsibilities. They need to clean, they need
Yeah.
to run
Mhm.
errands, they need
Sad.
to see people, and then they go do it all over again. When do they have time
Yeah.
for hobbies? And so that's the thing too, is like I just feel like our balance is so rough now, and especially with the loneliness epidemic that's cropping up, because we have less of that involves other people. So like I was
Mhm.
saying, all the
Yes.
way back around again, it's like, what can we do that isn't isolating us from people as much, right? And so
Absolutely.
building in those things for myself. And I like talking on the phone, I like going for walks, I like just being outside with people, and I don't need to necessarily be entertained because I'm entertained all the time. Like I'm just overstimulated.
Life's a game.
Yeah.
And like knowing what you're really about. So like when I'm spending time with people, I try not to spend much time on my phone, right? I don't even really want to, but like there's people that'll go to a million things every weekend and they're spending most of that on their phone, right? Because they don't really want to be around people because they need that time to themselves. And so a lot of people will they will say yes to too much, and I see that so much where I'm like, why are you saying yes? You're tired. And
Like you're allowed to say no.
but it's all stuff that I have purposefully said yes to. I say no or just don't respond to like a million things now because I just only do things I want to do, and that has not always like gone over well with people, but I keep my priorities aligned for myself, and I am very unapologetic for it. And I think that comes off in my content and what I'm doing. And so that's evolved. It's just like, I've taken a lot of time to just like find my self-assuredness in what I'm doing and not being apologetic for that, because why would I be apologetic for doing what I want to do? And people think that that's some sort of selfishness or whatever else. It's like, that's all you have. All you have is your own mind and your perspective and what you're doing.
And why should you not be allowed to express it?
Yeah, and I think people are just like they either overthink or underthink. I haven't decided yet. I'm still kind of I think about it a lot because when I say people, I think about like my past self and just think about what I was thinking, and it's like always just putting yourself in situations that other people have told you are important at the end of the day versus finding the things that you think are important and trying to make it from there. And that has evolved to where especially with my analytical background, where my content is very much me. And so it's not just copying what other people are doing. I'm not trying to put on a show like a lot of other people. I'm not trying to have the most technologically crazy or like the best alerts or like everything figured out. I at one point was trying to do that, and I was trying to do a million things. But then I was like, why would any of that matter? You know, what really matters is like producing content that I'm like proud of and that I think can have an impact. And nobody's really analyzing games the way that I like to. And it just kind of naturally evolved. A lot of people are just kind of repeating everything that they hear and like trying to play the things that are popular and like and I'm like, why don't I instead actually like really take a look and not be afraid to have my own opinions? And so, a lot of people who found their way in by watching others have a perspective of others versus me, because I came in from a weird direction. I only ever had my own opinion starting out. And so if anybody else wants to have something that's very niche and wants to find their own niche, I highly recommend just like tuning out everyone else and figuring out what it is that you enjoy the most and what you have that's special, and like figuring out what you like and putting multiple things together. So for instance, my analytical brain stuff and the stuff that I was good at in analysis. And then I also did fiction writing for a long time. That was my hobby. And so putting those things with what I do now, and I just get this like jumbled mess of, now I'm like really analyzing the story and gameplay in a way that most people don't, because they just want to say the popular thing. They want to produce, right? And I want to analyze, and it's just a different way of, or they want to like look like they're having fun or like be putting on this big show. And I don't, that's not for me anymore, right? I much more enjoy like really diving in and having real conversations about it and showing off what I enjoy about it and trying to get better and improving, and then bringing that back into life's a game. And so just like having full circle moments and doing everything with like intention instead of just willy nilly. And the more that each time you spend kind of thinking about what you want and either having that like meditation with yourself, going for walks, talking about it with other people, whatever works for you, like having that time to really self-analyze, I think will make it so that anybody who doesn't know what they want to do can figure it out. It's just spending that time with yourself.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on here, just like being able to know yourself more than anyone else. Because I mean, that's like all you have is you at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so if you are like one with yourself and you know everything about you, you know what kind of things you like, you know the kind of brain you have, you know the kind of work you want to do, you could like create an entire fulfilling, successful life for yourself instead of trying to find it from other venues.
Exactly, because it's going to look so different for everyone. And Every stream will look different from there too, and so you can find just what you're like, what do you do in your free time? If you can choose to do anything, what is it? And if you are really wanting to be a streamer, why? And then what can you put with that like is your special show? And so I'm hoping that because I'm coming at it from such a different angle, that eventually that catches on, because I know it's resonating with a small group. So there's likely a big group out there that I just have to produce it correctly in the right place with the right marketing, and it should eventually hit. That's like the key. You just keep going, and you just never know, because all businesses started somewhere. You know, the largest corporations started from some seed of something probably completely different than they are now, like Amazon was books, right? And so it's every seed like could blossom into a crazy large corporation. Not that it should necessarily. I have my thoughts on monopolies, but like, you know what I mean? You know, it could. There's so much potential for these different ideas. You just have to figure out the right thing and how to get it to the audience that wants it. And a big way to like picture that in a more productive method, because not everything is going to be worth paying for, right? Like there's things that people will want, but they're not necessarily ever going to pay for. And that's why advertising has taken over a lot of the digital realm, because people don't want to pay for it, but there has to be a way to monetize it. And so advertising has taken over, and then they can sell you stuff. And so it's like this weird, that's like where our system is built on now for so much of the digital world. And that evolves from the need to monetize. And so a way that I try to pick up on what, or like frame anything that I'm thinking about, is Ikigai, if you've heard of it. And so you do the what do you enjoy? What are you good at? What do people enjoy from you? And what will they pay for from you? And so you try to find like that central focal point of what meets all of those criteria, at least the ones you need at the moment, if you're trying to focus on a specific subset of that. And then you can prioritize from there a little bit better. And so then you can formulate whether, like, because not everybody's streaming for money, so they can take off the what will people pay for and do the other three, right? And so it's just figure out like what you're trying to do the most of, and then you can kind of shift it from there, just based on like analyzing how much that fits that priority structure. So like finding different mental structures for yourself, and there's so many different ones out there, like finding the one that resonates for you and being able to say, okay, this is what I'm working towards, here's how I can do it, versus just like living life willy-nilly. And if that's what you want to do, go for it. But like if you really think about what you want, you're probably going to have a better time and feel less resentment built up towards the things you don't want, that they're taking up too much of your time.
Absolutely. I think when you get to know yourself too, it's a lot easier to be lenient with yourself when you don't succeed, because you realize how human you actually are. Okay, we just have a couple more questions for you. We're getting into the fun ones now. But one more little thing. What would you say is the best advice you've ever received? Or what would be the best advice you would give to somebody who is I know you have a whole 4-book series, which everyone I totally recommend reading. I write notes. There's some really insightful questions in there. It's so useful.
Yeah, I saw you nodding along when you recognized things from the series.
I'm like, yeah, I know that. I read it. I absolutely love it. But what would you say is the best advice for someone who's trying to kind of get out of that box and live life like an adventure? Because sometimes it's so hard, especially when some people, for example, are people pleasers. It's really hard to tune out everything else, you know? And so it can be really hard to transition from this one way of life to a whole new way of life. So what would you say is the best advice you've ever received, or you would give somebody else?
I don't know if anyone ever told me this, but the thing that I've learned over the last few years is find a way to spend some time alone. I arguably spend too much time alone now, but I would say if you aren't sure what you want, right, the best thing you can do is just get other people's voices out of your head for even 5 minutes. Just like go for a walk, have a hobby that's just to yourself, have a moment that's just to yourself, meditate, whatever it is. Find your place that you can just spend some time thinking and like not being overstimulated for 2 seconds. Put the phone down, just like have that time to let your mind rest. It could be anything from going to a walk, or having like a physical hobby. That's a really good one. If you can like stand to go for long runs, I used to do that, endurance running. That was such a good time for me to just let my brain flow, because you can't do anything else. You were so focused on like, you know, your surroundings and running.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can't like look at your phone. You've got to be understimulated at that point. So that's letting your mind just rest. So physical activity is a really good one. Even just going for a walk and like not letting yourself touch your phone. Or like reading is a very like almost meditative state, and sometimes you'll start to zone out and your mind will go where you need it to. But if you're like watching TV most of the time, it's so stimulating that you're not going to allow your mind to like wander too much.
Yeah.
Versus when you're or like if you're on social media scrolling, your mind isn't wandering quite enough. Like you might have really cool ideas that come from that, but you've got to know what you want first. So those like really stimulating activities need to come second to just letting yourself be and exist and live and not think about anything specifically, just kind of letting the thoughts flow. Write them down if you need to. That can be a really good way to kind of start to feel like your mind is more present and less just everywhere, is just to write stuff down and then have it freeing. So like the to-do list is out of your mind, the business ideas or whatever you have out of your mind, the things that you need to write to those people that you've been meaning to talk to about something, or like whatever, like write that all down and then just like let your mind flow and see where it goes. And you might discover that like you have things that you've never even realized you wanted. You might realize the things that you're enjoying most. And then if nothing is really kind of flowing for you, you can find prompts for like, you know, there's a million self-help books out there, right? But like you can find prompts for whatever it is you're trying to get to. And you can find that free online easily from YouTube videos or articles or whatever else. And you don't need to spend any money on that. But just the like figuring out a structure for your brain to try to like let your mind get to that point. And I wish I'd done that earlier. I don't regret like my path because I think it was perfect for what I'm doing now. I think if I were to have done that right off the bat, I don't think it would have been right for me. I wouldn't have had the experience to do it well or to handle it well. It can be I was very stressed in stream today because I couldn't get the game to work and I was like about to break down because I'm so tired. But it's just one of those points in time. It's just you have to roll with it. I was like, guys, I'm about to cry. I'm so stressed. Like, but you roll with it, right? And you learn to handle that better. And had that been in my early 20s, there's no way I would have had the emotional intelligence or the like knowledge for what I am about and what I'm trying to do. You know, back then it was like trying to fit in and trying to like be cool, you know, like just trying to be liked and like trying to look like I was doing cool stuff because everybody's like, you know, the Joneses, right? Like you're just trying to look good, right? Like you're trying to look like you have it all together. And now it's like, I don't care what anybody else thinks if they think I have it together. I'm just doing what I enjoy, and it like makes for a really strange life that like some people are probably like, what is she doing? I don't care because I don't spend any time thinking about like those people. I think about like, what am I doing? What am I about? And my life, like because of that, is so much more improved because I'm not thinking about like the dramatics of anything else going on. Like they can have that. That's their business, you know? And I don't give like that energy anymore where I feel like I need to be in anybody else's business, or like I'm under no like thought that I'm in control of anything except my own reactions to things. And so once you realize that and you just kind of let everything else go, it's like a weight lifted off, and the stress that you do have can be very focused on the right things. So like, you know, today, sure, I was stressed about like a game not working, and like sometimes I'm stressed like when am I going to run out of money, like how do I make more money? But like those are things that are real versus like being upset about dramatics on the internet or like everybody, you know, when people are like so involved in like everybody else's lives in real life too, like that's just as bad as doing it on Twitter. Like it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can just for a second, like realize that you don't have control over that and it literally does not matter.
Has nothing to do with you.
It doesn't. And so it just, that's the advice I would give my 20 something self is spend more time really like in thought and stop being consistently like overstimulated, because I probably would have realized sooner that don't buy a bunch of junk. I probably would have realized like, you know, all of those things and maybe gone on the path a little bit sooner or better, or like in a way that was more productive. I don't know that I would want a different path, but maybe like a more refined path.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
valid. It's
Mhm.
good that you don't really regret the things that have led you to this path in life, because I'm sure all of us would, go back and there's like some things I would change, but like I wouldn't be the person that I am sitting here talking to you guys today
Yeah.
if I didn't go through all of those things. If I wasn't sitting in my darkest night of the soul,
Mhm.
Right.
like
Yep. And
to
the
get
darkest
to
night of the
this
soul does
point.
not have to look like being sad. It doesn't.
Oh,
Like
absolutely
it
not.
can look like
It's all
you're
about mindset.
exactly because I generally consider myself very like just happy and free, but also
Mhm.
stressed, and that it's okay to
Yeah.
have both. Like
You
that's
can be
okay.
both.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
They're both
certainly not-
inevitable. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that I was just as stressed even like in a more secure job, like when I was
Mhm.
working for someone, like when I was in Fortune 500s, I would say it was just as stressed. It was just a different type of stress, right?
Mhm.
Again, choose your heart. So it's like, what do you really, really want? And I don't think I asked myself that question enough. I did like when I was in college. It was like, what major do I want to do? It was all that. And a lot of people don't think about that either. They just gotta go with it, right?
No.
And so I'm glad that I had that forethought, like even then, but I wish I'd had it even more. And so people who definitely don't have that and are just doing whatever their parents want them to do or what everyone else around them is doing or like
Mhm.
what society is telling them to do,
Yeah.
like instead maybe just like do even a day of just where you research all of the different things that you can ever think of in life that are possibilities. Just like what types of jobs are out there, like especially
I
if you're
love that.
starting college and you're like, right, it's like think about like all the different things you've never even explored as options, right? It's endless. I mean, I could have like 100 lifetimes and not fill them up by all the things I want to do.
Oh my gosh,
And
yeah.
so it's that like lifelong learning and really like getting to know yourself too and not just spending you can't I'm just on the cliche train today, but you really can't
Hey,
what's
if
it
they
called?
apply, then there's nothing wrong with that.
You can't pour from an empty cup, as they say.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You do have to care
Exactly.
about yourself too. And a lot of people think that it's a selfless act not to, but I think it's selfish because eventually you run out and then you're just pouring nothing on everyone else, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a facade. Like you're not really helping them in any way because you're giving from something that you don't have to give.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's harming you in the end.
And
There
then they
was
start
one
giving
thing-
what other people have, right?
Mhm.
So it's
Exactly.
like when they're parroting, I call it parroting like other people's opinions. Like when they're parroting popular YouTubers' opinions, it's because they don't have anything of theirs to give. They haven't thought
Mhm.
about it. They haven't given it.
Yeah.
They haven't filled up their cup. They don't have anything for themselves.
I remember when I went to a therapy a few weeks ago and I was telling her like, for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm transitioning from worrying about everyone else's emotions and thoughts more than mine to actually caring about just who I am and myself and forgetting everybody else.
Yeah.
And because I'm so used to being stuck in this way of worrying about everyone else and what they think of me, it
Mhm.
feels selfish almost to be my
Mhm.
own person
Yep.
for once. And I'm like, this is the strangest feeling. Like I'm selfish for caring about myself for once. I'm selfish for,
Mhm.
thinking with my own brain instead of worrying about other people's thoughts and opinions of me. And I think that's just because of being so stuck in a way that people tell you to be and how we all grow up and we're influenced by other people. And it's really hard to break free of that.
And
But
I
it's
think it's
not
very
selfish at
selfish.
all.
It's very selfish to have to feel like you have to do stuff for other people because
Mhm.
that's just giving you that checklist
Yeah.
versus doing stuff genuinely because you want to.
Because you actually
And
care.
life is so much better when you're
Mhm.
actually doing things and you know that the people around you are genuinely giving things because they want to and that you're genuinely giving things because you want to. And so that when you're spending time together, it's meaningful because you both know that you genuinely want to spend time together and you're not like texting each other because you feel like, oh, I've got to check up on this person or
Yeah.
they won't like me anymore. They'll
Mhm.
think that I'm ignoring. It's like just get that out of your head and like find the
Mhm.
people that
Mhm.
are like you choose. Can I stop with the cliche?
It
Maybe
was
like
in
a-
her
like
head
a
for-
check-
It really is. My brain
tally
is just like
marks, yeah.
defaulting today.
We're gonna
I
write
guess.
down every cliche
Yeah.
she says on the screen.
It's like you can you can choose the love that you want. You can't necessarily force anyone else to change, and you shouldn't, right? But you can choose the type of love you want around you. And there's no like wrong way to go about that. There's different types of compatibility. And I think you can truly love anyone, but you can choose the love that you want to surround yourself with on like a daily basis. And that's, you know, anywhere from relationships to family to jobs to friends, all of it. Like you choose the type of like universe you want around you. And that's where we have our control. You know, it's not that we can change everything around us. It's that we can choose where the things are that we enjoy the most. And so, yeah, it's just that's what I try to live my life by. And while it can be very exhausting, it is also very rewarding, and that's part of it. Because when you are living like a more, I guess, valid life, I don't know what the word is for it, but like when you're living a more authentic life for yourself, you stop caring about the rest, and you don't see the rest as important anymore, because it's not, you can't possibly focus on everything in the world all at once at one time. You can't like it's impossible. And so when people are like, oh, if you don't care about this, you're a terrible person, it's like, well, you can't. I can't.
There's only
Like,
so many things I can care about.
Yeah, I can literally think on so many things at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, give
it's
me a
just
break.
impossible. If you're thinking about one thing, you can't literally think about another. And if you are, I mean, yes, I'm constantly in 8 places, but like truly, you can only do.
You're just bouncing back and forth.
You're
not
bouncing.
actually.
You can only think and do one thing at a
in, yeah.
time.
Exactly.
Right? And we have a finite amount of time. It is our greatest resource. Money is not our greatest resource. It's just a currency for trading. That's it. You will always have something to trade. You know what I mean? There's always something that we can do for each other and build in a different way. And so currency is just our system for it. And it doesn't matter. What actually matters is our time. And so the more that you can kind of figure out what it is that like brings you joy with your time, or that you can do to enjoy your time if you can't get out of the situation. Like, let's say you're stuck in your job and you have no way out because you need that money and there's nothing else you can do, and you're just doing your best. There are ways that you can try to enjoy that time more, right? And just find your joy within that if you can't change it. Where are the little moments that you can grasp onto, or where are the things within a moment that you can grasp onto? Like, let's say that you hate your office job and you hate the fluorescent lights like I did. What can you do to make that better and more enjoyable? Like if you need to embrace your weird, right? Like just bring a blanket if you're cold in there, because I always was, right? Or like, you know, just do weird stuff that like just because you can, or like get warm drinks all day or something, or like get up and like, if you are a people person, and I was an extrovert back then, I don't know that I am now. I'm kind of socially awkward now, but I spend most of my extroversion in the digital space. But you can go and like just talk to people more, like make your rounds, go for walks. Can you be that weirdo that does meetings outside? Like, is there something you can do to make your time more enjoyable if you can't get out of something? And if you can't literally react differently, what can you do in your mind to reframe it so that it feels better for you? And I know that sounds cliche and silly, but it really, really does work, because everything that we do in life is just perception. That's it.
Yeah. Very, very good advice. Very good.
So that's what I've got. I can't say it's perfect, but it is it's worked for me at least.
No, I love it. I love it.
I realized I muted myself because my dog was barking. But yes, I loved every minute of that, because it is so true and so insightful in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah. And it's just being real with yourself too. Like, you know, nothing's going to be perfect. Everything is going to have its struggles no matter what. And so when you see other people, know that they're always going through, like everybody is going through something. Life is just a series of things that we react to, and you can see them as problems or you can see them as opportunities. And a lot of people just want to see them as problems because that's the easier way, because then you don't have to solve anything.
You don't have to fix it.
You can just say, oh, it's a problem. But if you see it as an opportunity, then it's like, okay, well, what can I do with that? And it reframes everything. And it can be overwhelming, but like it's just getting that like mindset right so that you don't feel as overwhelmed. Like it really, like two people can be doing the exact same thing in the exact same situation and have completely different like feelings towards it. And it just has to do with where they're at in their mind. That's it.
Yeah.
Agree. Maggie, would you like to finish us off with our fun question?
We have some silly, fun questing hour questions for you.
Awesome.
So we love to talk about knights and wizards and castles and enchanted forests. So if you close your eyes, put yourself into that fantasy world, do you
Picture it.
imagine yourself as a knight, a wizard, a king or queen, or a gnome?
I want to say wizard.
Oh, I
I want to
like
be able
it.
to. I want to be able to do things like just magical abilities. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, that's nice. That's good.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yep.
Very good.
Have
Okay.
some sort of like weirdness,
A little
special powers.
kookiness, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Be
Very
neat.
Little
good.
kooky wizard in the
Yeah,
forest,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
everyone
Be able to
comes
just
to you
like
for
make
questions.
things appear. Yeah.
Yeah. So good. Cooking
Love
the
it.
potions up. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this next question. I
The
like to
most
use
important.
I
Okay.
probably ask this question to everyone I know. I feel
Mhm.
like their answers, I can psychoanalyze them and figure out what kind of person they are. So, in your fantasy world, if you had a castle that you lived in, where would it be and what would it look like? In as much or little detail as you want.
Honestly, I would love okay, so in fantasy worlds, you don't have to play by our Earth rules, and our
Exactly.
Earth rules suck in that we can't just like be outside and happy all
So
the time.
true.
Yeah.
Like we have to be like safe and secure inside to some degree. We have to like create shelter, but like if you're playing Animal Crossing, you can just like have all of your furniture outside. That's
Right.
what I want. Like I want my
Wait, can you
castle just-
actually?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so
Like,
cool.
like in the rain isn't going to destroy I would love
Yeah.
to just like not have to have these like structures where we're like
no
stuck inside all the
boundaries.
like just more, and the only reason we do is because of like I don't know if you guys have allergies, but I'm allergic to like grass and mold and like
Yeah.
all
Oh,
dust,
no.
and it's like why can't we just have where we don't have all of those issues? Like if my
Mhm.
magical castle is like where it's a little bit indoors, a little bit outdoors, on the beach, just like enjoying the good parts of these things and not having
Yeah.
like all of
Oh.
the negative weather
Mhm.
aspects messing everything up. Like why can't the weather just be there and not destroy things? Like what,
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's like where my
Okay.
brain goes.
So
And
perfect.
so
yeah. Well, as a wizard, you could cast a spell to like
Exactly.
protect your
Exactly.
Perfect weather.
furniture from the from
I
the
want like a
elements.
little Animal Crossing, like Stardew cozy game type of like, I
I
don't
love
want a
it.
big castle.
Yeah.
I want it to just be cozy and nice.
The dream.
That's amazing. I'm imagining like a spiral staircase, but like just floors, no walls.
Yeah. Be great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's so beautiful. I love it.
so magical.
So good. All
I've
right.
never heard that one.
I know it's so
I'm
good.
a weirdo. You're always gonna get different answers from me.
I'm a weirdo.
Me too. I
All right.
absolutely love it.
Yeah. So our very last question. At the end of all of our episodes, we kind of take everything we've talked about and give our viewers a side quest or like a little task, something that they can do throughout the week to just focus them in a moment, give them like a little unique experience. We've done like do something that scares you, take yourself on a movie date, put together an outfit that you've never worn before, just little things to get them out of their heads. So taking all of your experiences, the 4 years of streaming that you've done, everything we've talked about during this episode that we've done, what is a side quest that you would give our viewers?
It can be
If
as
you-
big, as little, or as you want.
Yeah.
If you can go outside right now, because I know weather isn't perfect everywhere all at the same time, but if you can go outside this week and just do something completely by yourself, don't have anyone else involved. If somebody comes your direction and you want to talk to them, sure, but like don't invite anyone. Just do something completely by yourself. What I like to do when I'm having like kind of a restful time and I go out is I will take a book and I will take my picnic blanket and then I will go get myself something to eat. And then I will go and I will sit down with my picnic blanket outside somewhere like by a lake or something. And I will read my book and I will be very happy in the warm sun. And that is like perfect time for me.
Wow.
Or if you like live near a beach, the beach is like my favorite place. I mean, I would just go to the beach and enjoy that if that's your thing. Just do something completely by yourself. Don't look at your phone. Like if you feel like you need the safety or precautions or you have people you answer to for any reason, like make sure to text them first and be like, I'm off the grid for the next like 6 hours. Like do a digital detox time while you're doing that. There's huge benefits to having some digital detox time. So if you can do just a little bit and start out that way, especially if you're somebody who's glued to your phone, it can really do something for you. I've done it for like a whole weekend before and told people, hey, if you need me, come knock on the door. Literally, I will not be
Yeah.
near my technology. So like do that in a small dose for a few hours and just go outside by yourself, do something that is peaceful to you.
I love that. I am
Perfect.
already thinking about where I'm gonna go, what food I'm gonna get, what book I'm gonna read.
Yes.
It sounds amazing.
I was focusing on the digital detox because I definitely need that.
I do too. I'm gonna have to take my own advice because I've not been digital detoxing enough at all. I was for a little while going for walks like every day and digital detoxing, and then I
Wow.
just
Yeah.
didn't have time anymore.
It's so easy to fall back
Definitely
into
just-
it. Yeah.
I go through
Consume that
phases
media.
where I'm like working out a lot, or where I'm like going and spending enough time outside a lot, or you know, I go through these phases, and so I can be very forgiving when I'm like thinking about the phases, because it's like, well, I did that for 3 months, and then it kind of fell off, but I can always come back.
But
Yeah.
you did do it, and you
Right.
can do it again.
And so when you see that, it's like, I did that for a time, and I can do it again, and it doesn't have to be where you were doing everything all the time at once.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
phases are
I
good.
love that. Yeah. I feel like everyone's like, you have to set a routine and you have to do it every single day for the rest of your life, or it's not a success. So just being like giving yourself phases, like, oh yeah, this is my
So
going to the
many
gym every
people
day
do the
phase.
daily thing.
Yeah.
This is my
They
gym
can
era.
help you like break out of habits or start new ones, but it's not like I change my routine all the time, just in phases, and so I don't think it's necessary to do the daily. That's a lot of pressure.
It is. It's so much pressure, and then you end up feeling bad when you fail. But
Yeah.
just giving
Oh, yeah.
yourself that grace and be like, okay, I did this for a season. It's no longer working for me
Yes.
because I'm a different person in this next
Yeah.
phase of my life. So
You
why
have
should my
different
routine be the
priorities.
same? Yeah, I love that.
Exactly. You're playing a different game, if you will.
Playing a
You know,
different
you
game,
say,
yeah.
Exactly.
on to the next.
Yep, that's amazing. Oh my God, this has been such a great
Perfect.
talk. Yeah,
I know. Thank you for
I love,
joining us.
I love these kind of talks. I can do this
so
all day.
good. Yeah.
Murph does too. Look, he's
Ah, Murph, we love you.
Thank you
Murph.
for joining
Thank you for your
us,
insights,
little
Murph.
baby.
boy.
Well, now we would like to, before we start plugging our outro, we'd like to give you the chance to tell our community what you're all about. Give yourself a shout out, if you will, where they can find you and whatnot. So whatever you want to say about yourself, you have the floor.
So I'm MADKurious, and I am on Twitch mainly. I also do YouTube. I have 2 YouTube channels, and one of them is a business channel. I haven't been doing as much on that lately, but on the business side, if anyone who sees this like owns a business or is starting up or even needs like finance help, I have consulting services that I offer. So I would love to work with anyone who needs that. And you can find my email on any of my socials. Just like go to MADKurious and you can find me, and all of my DMs and stuff are open too. So I'm always like available to reach out for business stuff and content stuff and all of that. So I stream. I love analyzing games. I love analyzing life and business, and it's just trying to find passion projects from that. So if any of that sounds like something you think that you'd have something to work on me with, I'm always open. So
Love
Awesome. Yeah, you heard it, guys.
Well, that's all for today's episode. You travelers have your quests. So where can they find us, Maggie?
They can find us on every single social media. If you're thinking of it, we're probably there. It's
Everywhere.
Questing HR Podcast. That's where you can find us. And we have episodes Monday and Thursday on YouTube and Spotify. So check it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we'll see you back here on Monday with another side quest.
Farewell, travelers.
Yeah.